Hi guys, so in this video we're going to be taking a look at how to block and how to fill and repair swage lines and arch lines such as this on this bumper corner in front of me. Okay, so we've got this arch repair here. Now it's add a bit of a notch for the bumper, it's add a little bit of filler work. So what we want to do is make sure that we block this line back in on this swage nice and straight and keep that nice perfect curve. Now for this we've got a few things. We've got a 320, we've got a 500. I've got a little bit of fine line tape to show one way of doing it, just to make sure that you don't knock off the edge that we're going to be putting on. And then a few of you guys have been asking me to do a video on this. This is the little tool that I have designed specifically for doing swage lines. I spent a couple of weeks going through different versions of this and different sort of like iterations, if you want, to make this the best sort of tool possible for marking up swage lines on arches and also some of the flat lines, wherever you can get it to fit. And it'll just be quite a handy little tool. Now I will put the link on the website to this, and especially at the moment when things are very iffy in the world, shall we say, and business is very hard, if you guys are ordering one of these, it will be helping us out as a small business to continue on and also to keep the doors open so we can keep YouTube going as well. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we're going to use this little tool that I've designed to mark up this arch line. Now this is the last prototype model that we've just kept at work to actually use. In the actual version that we're selling, it's got a little notch on the center line so you can actually measure up your arch line. Now if it's something like this, and say this repair goes all the way to the top and you can't use this particular side of the car, then what I'd suggest is, first things first, go around to the other side of the car so we can use the arch line from the other side of the car. And all we're going to do is we're going to loosen the wing nut. We're going to measure up so that the notches line up to our swage line. That means that when the pencil goes in, this will be central on that swage line. And then we're just going to tighten it up. So now that's locked in place. So now we have got the perfect radius for this arch measured up from the good arch on this side of the car. And what we've actually done is inbuilt rollers into the top of the tool so that when you're doing an arch or something like that, it'll roll around a lot smoother. So all we need to do now is literally come to our repair side. We just literally pop a pencil in, light bit of pressure, straight round, and then we can draw our line. Nice, even, perfect line around the swage line. So now we've got the arch line perfectly marked out, and we know it's the right size because we use the measurement off the other side of the car and off the good side of the car. Now there's two ways you could do this. Personally, I would just go on this now with a block and just basically block the higher ridge down to make sure that it comes down to meet that line. Or if you're a little bit more of a beginner and you're slightly newer to this way of doing things, what you can do just to be safe is just get yourself a little bit of fine line tape, follow that line that we've just marked out, and what that will do is protect your swage line. So this is the very edge of where we want the swage line, and that'll just protect it. So when we start actually blocking that line shortly, this will stop you blocking too far. So I'll show you both ways of doing it now, and then we can just give a little demonstration of that. Okay, so the two ways of doing this now would be, we could either start blocking towards the line, but I know for some of you, obviously, you are kind of eyeballing where you're blocking up to if you're doing it that way. And if you go a little bit too far, it'd be really easy to get that edge knocked off on that line. So the easiest way, now we've got that perfect arch line marked out, will be to just use some nice thick fine line tape. We're using the J-tape here. I find this is really, really good when you're doing little jobs like this. We're just going to pop it on, follow that swage line round, take our block, and then literally we can now, if we run the block around there, you should be able to see there's that gapped edge up towards the tape. Now here it's further away, here it's a little bit closer. So what we want to do now is bring that up so it's a nice straight even line up against our tape edge. Now once that's done, and we've brought it all the way up. So if we just use this little top section for a demonstration. Now this top section here, as you can see, is perfectly following that tape line from there up. Now you see from there down it's still a little bit wider, so we'd need to block that little bit further. Now you can do exactly the same to keep the line good the other way. So if we just take a little bit more tape and we just step it off just like 0.5 millimeter from the other line, so there's a tiny bit of a gap, and then we go around that way and we take this again, and then we can block this just the same going the other way, and then when we take that off, we then should have that perfectly blocked in swage line going across. Now if this was something like a door or something, which we'll go to in a minute, I'll show you a little repair on a door doing exactly the same in filler, because you can use this for both filler or for blocking your primer. Then my personal way of doing it would be, I would block the flat face across first. So I know that flat face is all nice and flat, but the chances are it's going to be too large in that direction. Then I would mark out the arch line, tape this edge off, and then block that face down to meet it, and then I'd have that perfect swage line running all the way down this arch. So now we're going to take a look at the repair on the bottom of this door here. Now obviously that would have a swage line running through it, and you might want to metal pull it first, but what we're going to do is to mark the swage line out there, so you could pull it. You could just switch this round now to use the flat face along there, so you rather than the rollers on the other side that we'd use for the arch. So then you can put the flat face on again, loosen the dial, measure it up, line it up to the 2 notches in the top of the tool, so you can make sure it's bang on with your swage line. Just double check it to make sure that you got your measurement right, and then you can place it on and mark straight across, and it'll mark the bare metal as well with the pencil. So if you needed to use something like a GYS stud puller or something, you've got a perfect line there that you could use to mark and pull out the metalwork with. Now obviously, because this is just a demonstration, what I have done is just taken a couple of layers of paint off to take this right to bare metal, so I can show you how exactly I would go about filling and blocking this out with the use of something like that tool. So first we're just going to put a very light skim of body filler over it. Now you always want to try and have it a tiny bit above the repair, so you never want it too low ideally, because then you're going to have to put another level of filler in it. A job like this, I would be looking for 1 fill, and this job would be done in 1 rather than having to do it 2, 3, 4 times to get this job right. So that would be the first layer of filler, and as you can see, that front bottom face I've left a little bit higher overlapping than I have the very top flat part. And there is method to doing it that way, as you will see here. So what I'm going to do first is work this bottom flat face. What I always find where people overcomplicate swage lines is trying to work too much all at once. So rather than trying to work both faces at the same time, let's get this bottom face sanded and blocked down with a P80, so we know this bottom is nice and blocked and it's in line, and we've got a nice transition between the filler and the paintwork, and it's just at that right stage that we can tickle over it in a minute with a 180 to just refine the shape on it. And as I say, when you've got something like this that's got multiple shapes in it, just work on one shape at a time. Don't try and block all the different shapes all at the same time, because you're just going to cause yourself a lot of problems. Work one at a time. Now we've still got this locked and set from earlier on when we did the marking on it, so what we're going to do now is just we're going to put a straight line where that swage line is straight across on that filler. Now the overlap now, as you can probably see, is hanging just a bit above onto the top face. So now we can block everything down to meet that line nice and gently, and because we've got that perfect line on there, we've got that nice guide now to block that top face down. Wipe it off, give it a little check, make sure you're not going too far, and just gently take it down so it meets that pencil line, and ideally try not to take too much of that pencil line off. Now because we have left these around about 95% there, we can take a tiny bit off, but you don't want to go getting carried away. Then we're going to go across, once we've got that flat face on the top done, we're going to mark this again, across that swage line, just to make sure that we've got that guide at all times so we know where we're going. And obviously on something like a wheel arch where it's a very complicated shape, this is like quite an essential part to making sure that this repair is perfect start to finish. Then we're going to use a P180 and we're just going to block in now all those 80 scratches out and just take that fillet, that last tiny little bit down, just to refine the shape on the edge of this swage line. Then same again, we're going to wipe it off, then we can remark this and then start blocking from the top and then refine that top face down so we end up with that perfect swage line. Now when I do this last little piece for the very final finish, I will just knock that back around about 0.5 millimeter to allow for the fillet to come down with the 180, and then just block along that nice and gently, just trying to make sure that you are keeping that perfect line all the way across. And if you do this right now, ideally you should be keeping your pencil line on the car, so you can see there we've got that perfect line straight the way through that. We know that's a nice sharp edge where that swage line would be, so if we then high builded that and then repeated that same sort of process for blocking it, we'd end up with that perfect swage line repair. So that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it, and as I said earlier in the video, I will leave a link in the description to our website where you can purchase one of these tools. Bye for now.